Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have a two-time Greco-Roman World Team member. He made teams in 1997, 1998. He coached with the 2016 Greco Olympic team. His wife is an Olympian. Now he sells medical supplies. Chris Saba, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time to have a chat with me.
Well, my understanding is that you're joint replacement. So being a Greco guy, are you disappointed when someone needs a joint replacement below the waist?
That's ironically, that's usually where they need it, because you either, the parts I sell are either a shoulder replacement, a hip replacement, or a knee replacement. And it's usually a hip replacement. You'd be surprised. I know some knees too, but it's kind of funny. But yeah, it's quite a few wrestlers need hip replacements.
So is there any connection here, being a Greco guy and, of course, great hips? It's all part of wrestling, that there's some crossover there that you enjoy, that the wrestling aspect of it, knowing that joint replacement's probably a big part of wrestling?
No, except the way I got into it was the team doctor for the World Championships in '98. It was in Sweden. Is one of the doctors I still work with. And I was, he talked to me a little bit about it. He was like, you'd be a good medical device sales rep. I deal with these people a lot. And he's like, you got the right personality. And I know you work hard because you're here. And I said, all right, I'll look you up, when the time comes, when I decide to retire. He's like, you do that. And I did that. And he gave me a good endorsement. It got my foot in the door for some interviews. So it really, that's really was my main connection. And having his endorsement as such a high level orthopedic surgeon really helped me.
How did wrestling help you with this position?
Just work ethic, and you set a goal, and whether that would be to grow your business or get this one other customer, whatever it might be. But wrestlers are persistent, and we weather some tough times, and we put ourselves in uncomfortable positions. It's tough. Like, tribute sales correlates a lot to, a big wrestling match. It's, quelling your anxiety and not zapping your own strength to be able to go out and perform it's the same thing as going and talking to some, well-trained MD. Hey, excuse me, sir, could I have a minute of your time? So I would say that would be the correlation there.
But with wrestling, you have to go inside. It's all focused, and you have to focus on the little details. But unique in this is that you have to go out, you have to be charismatic, you have to engage. What's the difference then between wrestling and actually engaging in someone?
Nothing matches up to the wrestler, to that stage. It's all on the line with wrestling. There's really nowhere to hide or escape, and you have to make a decision at that moment, and whatever that decision will yield certain consequences. So, it's easier. I would say what's the difference between the wrestling and the competition and my career on the mats versus what I do now is the wrestling was more difficult. What I do now is probably easier in a lot of ways because of the acclimation through wrestling.
Well, everyone talks about how wrestling does translate, but is there something about Greco-Roman wrestling that might be different or unique that translates in a different way than maybe folk style or freestyle?
Obviously, there's more freestyle wrestlers out there for sure. There's more exposure for youth wrestling to freestyle, which is, I think, something we grapple with in our country. I happen to grow up in upstate New York, Albany, New York, and there was a club there, the original Atwa. I don't know if you've heard that name before, but then it eventually morphed to the New York Athletic Club. And I just happened to love wrestling as a young kid, 11, 12, and I wanted to go and participate more outside of the regular season. And the closest club to me was this Atwa club. Joe DeMeo was the head of it. And I guys, Jeff Blatnick, Sean Sheldon, Andy Saras, Frank Famiano. These are all names, Isaac Ramaswamy. The name goes on and on of guys that were there. And that when I went to this club, these guys were 8 years, 10 years ahead of me, somewhere in that window, 5 to 10. And but they did Greco-Roman. It happened to be one of the 10 real elite Greco-Roman wrestling clubs out there. So that's the rest. I just had exposure to it. So, I don't have the total pulse of where different clubs are around the country, Greco-Roman style wise. I have a club here. It's a folk style one that I run with my kids, and we can talk about that. But I think it's it's something you have to have obviously some exposure to, but that would be the difference. So I think Greco-Roman wrestlers, I don't know, we had a little bit of a tighter family for many of the years that I was competing. We had like, all right, these are the Greco guys. So I hope that kind of answered your question to some extent.
It does, and when you have the Greco guys, and you're going to see the freestyle guys, you're on numerous national teams. You were right there on the cusp. Had placed second at 2 Olympic trials. But when you're around the freestyle team, is there competition with that? How do you guys relate to each other?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, for sure. There is. And, I think I think there's definitely some things Greco-Roman wrestlers can help freestyle wrestlers with that they normally would not get much exposure to, like gut wrench defense, that type of thing. They obviously get exposure to it. Let me take that back. But it's a different feel. And I remember when we were training and guys like Brandon Slay and, these are guys around my weight that I remember training with freestyle wise. We did a lot of crossover training with those guys. Ramiko Blackman, these are guys that were resident athletes out here that I trained with. And I remember they'd always, all right, let's do some gut wrenches and that sort of thing. And then it's a different balance feel but it's still wrestling. It's still, I don't want to get down to the roots of it, but in Greco-Roman, you do use your legs very much. It's just, different actions as far as actually picking the leg up or blocking it, that sort of thing. But it helps a ton. And going with some freestyle guys is putting yourself at different levels that you normally wouldn't be at. It helps a ton. So I think it's great cross-training.
Greco certainly isn't the predominant style. It probably goes folk style, freestyle, and then Greco. But do you feel like you're fighting for attention when you're in Greco?
I think now, I hope real athletes, they don't do it for attention. But yeah, for sure. And it's, somewhat understandable. The United States has not really embraced it. I felt like we had a good wave going when I was competing, that 4 or 5 years that you said, I made 2 world teams and, hard to say, but second in 2 Olympic trials, which is tough. I think I would have taken one of those Olympics and given up the 2 world teams, but, lost fair and square. And it was, like I said, looking back, that's one thing, you say, all right, could have zigged when I zagged or that, but, hindsight's 20/20, but, as long as you put the time in, I feel confident in that. So great memories and experience. But it's I think in our era, when like we had Dennis Hall, Jim Gruhall, Matt Kafar, we won a lot of medals. And then, I've had a professional career, building my medical device career, and I really dove into that. And the last 5 to 10 years, I live right near the Olympic Training Center. Matt Lindland, who's the head Greco-Roman coach, which he's doing a great job also. So I have really good exposure, and I've coached tours and that type of thing. But what I don't get to see, and I don't want to comment, like I don't see how many clubs there are out there doing the sport, because I think if you don't have exposure at 12, 13, 14, your odds of, gaining that, if you started at 19 or 20 are probably a lot less, even with a solid folk style background.
A lot of people ask the question, everyone has a theory on what it will take for Greco-Roman to get to the next level. What's your advice? You hear that we need more D1 talent, need more college guys to buy in, that you have the Northern Michigan club. Maybe that needs to stay there. Maybe it needs to go away. Give us your advice.
Well, I'll tell you what happened with us, and we were successful. In the Olympic Training Center had a resident athlete program, and I'm just lucky about good timing. A bunch of us, Rulon Gardner, these are all the guys that, I could list all the names off, and I don't want to forget names, but in 1993, they started the program, and they had 23 beds at the Olympic Training Center. What that means is full-time training. You come to Olympic Training Center, and we all train together. So times have changed, and they just, like Matt Lindland, they don't have the permanent athletes that live there and grow as a team. They have 6 beds now. So it's just not enough all at once. Now, I don't see what they're doing in Northern Michigan. I think that would be a good thing. But we need more of those type of programs. Like, all right, you can't get 5 athletes together. I think you need 15 or 20 together that are young men and kind of can can develop and grow, encourage each other on, and then somebody's going to spark success. Somebody's going to have it. And then as soon as that your peer does, you're like, if he did it, shit, he beat that guy. Well, you know what? Maybe I can beat that guy too. And I remember it kind of had that ebb and flow. So, no excuses to the guys. And the other handicap they have now, and freestyle has it too, is, come on, with 6 weight classes at the Olympics, it's it's ridiculous. There's just too much talent, and the foreigners feel the same way. So it's even tougher to win a medal. So you asked me. I think you need a group of. You got to find 20. Not 10. You need 20 young people that have good Greco-Roman, at least some roots, some foundation, and let them all train together for a while. And not easier said than done. Money talks with everything. You need the funding and that sort of thing. So that would be a suggestion I had.
But you've seen this before too, though, where you get a high-level collegiate guy, try his hand at Greco, he'll get throttled by someone that he thinks he shouldn't, and then he just drops out. How do we keep that guy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, that goes a little bit back to, I think you need a little bit of fundamental. It's a different sport. It truly is a different sport. It's the same but different. But some of those, he needs to give it more time. Somebody, a really good encourager, a good coach, to say, hey, man, give yourself, a little more time. I specifically remember, one of the tours I coached, we had Dave Dean came over, and what an amazing wrestler, amazing person. His dad was a great Greco-Roman wrestler. He was in the same era. And, maybe he just decided he was ready to retire. I don't know, but he was great. He was one I was like, man, this guy could be good, and he just wasn't around long enough to really have his skills. So I think you got to convince some people to do that, because they do. Come on, man. Our Division I wrestling in the United States, these guys are amazing. You take the top 3 and random draw at any weight class, and any one of them can win a medal in freestyle, and which is so competitive worldwide. So, we have a really great fundamental wrestling bit, and obviously freestyle is very close to folk style, with the way it's wrestled, much closer than Greco. So it's a hard problem to solve if you want to say it's a problem. It truly is, and you'll never get it parity, I don't think. But we did, as a team in 2007, United States was the Greco-Roman World Champs. So, and the years, every year that I was between 95 and 2000, we won medals every year. So, and then, like I said, now there's more weight classes, but it's tough. I think it's a tough problem to solve.
Speak to that, though. They won it in 2007. That's like, if you follow wrestling, that's like the miracle on ice. That just shouldn't happen in the United States, conceivably, and they did it. You remember what you felt when they did it?
Yeah, it was amazing. But there was momentum then. There was a lot of momentum then. I remember going to the Olympics in '96 as one of the alternates, and in 2000 we had multiple medals, and we were right. I think in '96 we might have been the 3rd place team. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I remember we had won medals. We had guys winning matches in every weight for the most part. So it was, it was like, holy shit, 1st place over the Russians, the Iranians, all that. 2007. That was amazing. But it was heading that direction. And I'd have to go. I didn't check any data before I hopped on a call with you, but I would like to see it. And I'm sure it correlates a lot to less weight classes. And we got good guys now, man. Some of these guys that are just right there. We just had so many near misses, and it's tough. Like I said, with the reduced weight classes and the training is like I really firmly believe having more guys together, a team with that many more partners and stuff. I think we kind of have pockets of guys training. You know what I mean?
What was it you liked about Greco that drew you in?
I was good at it. I like that part of it, but I did like freestyle too when I was younger. But like I said, that club I went to, and then when it's like anything, you have a little success. And I didn't overdo it as a youngster, but I didn't know I was going to be. I decided to go to the junior nationals, and I don't know the numbers at the Fargo Nationals now, which would correlate to the junior nationals I went to. I think it was in Iowa then, but I remember taking 5th as a junior in high school. I was like, wow, and there was like 130 kids in the weight, And that was like, I'd always wrestled locally in the Empire State Games and maybe a regional or two. I had no overseas exposure, none. But, it was after that, after winning, 10 matches and this big from kids all over, I was like, wow, I'm good at this. I want to be better. So I think it's just, and I run a youth wrestling club, and I think it's very important for somebody, don't just keep throwing somebody to the slaughter early, because you will lose them, so, that goes back to your question about some of these Division I guys that really, if they just had a little more time to adjust to the style, maybe we keep them longer. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, your wife's a judo Olympian. Do you guys compare and contrast wrestling and judo?
Yeah, I mean, judo's a great sport. Where I grew up, I had one of the best, couple of the best judo players America has had, Jimmy Pedro and Jason Morris. Both were right around my neck of the woods. Jason Morris went to Syracuse University and was an All-American there, and then won a medal in the Olympics and the Worlds. And so did Jimmy Pedro. Jimmy Pedro was a world champion for judo. So utmost respect. As far as my wife was on 2 Olympic teams too. And she was the first American junior world champ for the country. And, her career, it's funny, she retired at like 23, 24. But she's, like I see it, I think you only have a window of so long you can tolerate the daily grind. I mean, some people fall outside the mean of that, but I think about 8-10 years at a, elite level of full year training is about all your psyche and maybe even your body can take, because she was just done after the 2000 Olympics, and she probably had some good years after that too.
Talk about that daily grind, because it is a sport like no other. When you're in it, are you thinking about how hard this is? Are you so brainwashed with what you're doing that it just becomes the norm?
You got to be all in. I mean, because like I said, that difference in the real top, you got to be all in. So, and it's, it was fun. It was fun for me too. I enjoyed it. I liked the traveling. I liked the success. I liked the friendships I still have. You can't, and I hope guys are doing that now. I mean, if they want to like say, I don't mean to preach you, but if I didn't win the world championships, I sat in the corners while people did, and I saw what they did, and they lived it, man. Guys, some of these guys, I don't know nobody lucks into world medals or Olympic medals. They live it. They breathe it. They take care of their injuries. They take care of their body. They take care of their mind. And, you got to be it's a special guy. You got to be a little bit like some of the best guys. There's tons of interesting stories, but the way that their mat strategy, and they could be utterly fearless. I remember warming up with Matt Lindland before, and this was one of his greatest strengths, before the Olympic gold medal match. I mean, he's in the Olympic, he's about to go for a gold medal. And I remember him just being like, oh, man, this is awesome. This is freaking great. And I'm like, holy shit, aren't you nervous, man? I mean, I'm saying this to my head, I'm encouraging him, but he truly was, and I'm sure I see that over and over. Some people that just embrace that type of, because otherwise, if you, and every athlete that watches it, a wrestler especially, if you get your anxiety can crush your strength. It has a physical, profound effect on you. So I think, other than actually doing the training and having the experience, the really good guys have a special way of having when it's match time, they can utilize all their strength instead of zapping it with the what ifs type of thing. It's a big part.
Speak to Matt Lindland, because it's a guy that will admit to you that he wasn't the most talented, but mentally got himself to a point. When you saw him day in and day out, what kind of things did he do to get himself ready?
Well, he never would miss a practice. He would wrestle through injuries as long as it didn't make it worse. And he was coachable, and he was a good teammate. And, and there's lots of other guys besides him, I could say, a lot of these champions. And they would fix problems. If they got turned to the left side by this guy, well, guess what? They would be training all day the next practice. If he was, how do I stop this going to the left? So you got to correct your mistakes. And, just a hard worker. But he like, I'm sure, some of these guys I don't spend I get to see them, some of these elite freestyle guys, and I have friends with them and the Greco guys too, but they have a special way of having that kind of self-confidence that you really need to, because if you don't believe you're going to win, trust me, you're way behind the 8 ball there. You the first person's got it. Doesn't matter if your coach believes, your wife believes, your girlfriend believes. You got to believe. So all the good ones were like, didn't care who they were going at, and Matt truly felt that way, And so did Rulon. I mean, look at Rulon. I mean, come on. I mean, against Karelin, and it's more, everybody talks about his match against Karelin, but he was beating everybody all the way, slow up and up and up. And he just believed, and he was a hard worker too, Dennis Hall too. I mean, these guys were all these guys that, won these medals were put in the work. I haven't seen, and I know you know this too, and other wrestlers, I haven't seen somebody that, oh, wow, he didn't even work that. It just doesn't happen, not in our sport.
You get over to the Olympic Training Center. You live in Colorado Springs.
Yep, regularly. I get over there. Obviously, for the last couple months, nobody has, but they're starting to do some practice. But yeah, I go over, and like I said, I've been on a tour every year. I was honored to be selected as the Greco coach in I said 96. I'm so used to saying that, but 2016. That was a great experience to go over there. And like I said, we were, Bissick, and it's Robbie Smith. I mean, we were so close in some of these matches, and it is unfortunate, and you can't make excuses, but I think they did deduce that there was some referee jockeying going on during those Olympics, not just for Greco, but freestyle. So that was unfortunate. You can kind of see it too.
When you look back at your career, what was the pinnacle match for you?
Well, my best match, pinnacle, one of I was very proud of, and was against Dave Zuniga, and he's a great man. He was tough. And Dave, how you doing? If you ever watch this, but all the respect to you. But we wrestled in the World Trials Finals in '98. And they've experimented with rules. They keep doing it still. But they had an unlimited overtime. And there's a few matches they always reference out there about, this match or that match. But me and him had 3 matches in a row that went over 10 minutes. And one of them was 13 minutes. And it was a war. I mean, I had to show you. My one eye was completely shut for the 3rd match. And it was in New Orleans. It was hot as balls. And it was just everything I had, and him too. And I won by a narrow margin. It could have been, we went the best of 3 matches, but that was that was a good one. That was a good one.
When you go to war like that, and you talk about these grind matches, I have to think that just helps you for the rest of your life, knowing that not much can be thrown your way that you can't handle. Yeah,
exactly, and that's why the work stuff now. I mean, can have some long days, have some short days, but you're tested when it's the long days and it's late, and you have a lot of stuff to move around, things to do, people in an operating room with some pretty things might not go as well, or it's can be an intense environment. So yeah, absolutely, but nothing like a best of 3 10-15 minute match is good training for anything.
You enjoy what you do right now?
I do enjoy it. It's it's something that, I've kind of crafted my trade. I know the procedures pretty well, and I feel like I'm of use, and I feel like I'm helping people. And the business has grown. And, ironically, we have several other wrestlers that are in the same industry. Like another Brad Veering, Nebraska NCAA champ, silver medalist in the World Championships, Greco guy. You probably know the name. He is I see him every day in hospitals, but I kind of introduced him to somebody in this industry, and he's just, man, he's, like I said, his work ethic on the mat is showing now because he's just doing so well. Another guy named Dan Niebuhr, and a guy I work with also named Mike Ellsworth, who's another. So there's 4 Greco guys that are all doing medical device here in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, Brad was on that 2007 World team.
Yes, he was. Yep, he was on that team. So, and he's a great. I mean, he's great, and he's almost like a second father to my kids, which is great because we're friends, and it's, sometimes he says the right things, and I really respect and I'm thankful for that, and they look up to him. So that's good.
You're a fly fisherman. What's the art to fly fishing and making it effective?
Going in the right spot and using the right thing. No, don't over glamorize it or whatever. Everybody's, shows out there working on their casting and the fly has to land like this. But yeah, it's knowing your trade, knowing where to go and what to use, and it's a challenging, fishing. I like any type of fishing, but fly fishing is kind of something special, because it's beyond just to actually, first it's more difficult to catch fish, to have them to actually hit the fly, but then to bring them in is a little bit more of a challenge. So I guess us wrestlers just look for challenges.
Has your wife ever thrown you in a judo throw?
Only when I let her. No, she's tough. She's got good balance. So yes, she still wrestles around with. We have a little wrestling mat in the basement here, and I'm gonna do a little workout with my 2 kids a little bit later. But she's smaller than me. So my one son, Michael's about 100 pounds, and he said she's 120 pounds or whatever she is. She can wrestle with him a little more than I can. So yeah, absolutely. I've never put a gi on and done a competition. I regret that now. I've done some workouts, but I've never felt it like in a real competition. But a judo player, they have uncanny balance. I mean, I would encourage wrestlers too, if they ever get a chance to mess around with that,
There's never too late here, Chris. You could try out.
Well, hey, I don't know, man. I'm turning 50 in a week. So I think it's time to really hang up the shoes then.
Well, man, I appreciate this time. This is a lot of fun talking to you and seeing what you're doing. Keep growing Greco, and we'll see what happens here in the 2021 Olympic cycle.
Yeah, hopefully it's a go. Things are looking all right. Kyle, thanks for your involvement in the sport and promoting it, and keep up the good work, everybody out there. Go USA Wrestling.